Time to start using the forwarder a little. It will be used for cultivation. Looking it over. The sides are supposed to be kind of transparent on the coolant reservoir, but if it's dark outside and you shine a strong flashlight down the fill cap, you might be able to see it, but it's not super easy to see. So it's best to take the cap off and check with the ruler or something. And it is low, but it's probably from back when we replaced that crankshaft seal. The harvester wanted to stall on me a little here and there, so this electric pump was replaced not long ago because the forwarder had stalling issues. And here I'm just comparing how much noise and vibration a new fresh one makes, so I can compare it. More on that in a future video. It fired right up very nicely. It was backed up a little to start preparing it for pulling the cultivator behind it. And we're just gonna use the simple setup that we used last year. I would like to add a hitch, but then I will probably need some improvement on the connection on the cultivator also, so that will have to wait a little. We're just pulling the chains through the pipes added back here. It actually has an extension that you can mount through these, but it doesn't work with the load flex solution we have now that folds out because it's just a fixed bunk. And should we at some point need to haul very long thing or actually take the branches and the energy wood out, it might be worth adding it, but for now it's just sitting in storage as scrap metal. But as long as the machine keeps operating, I'm keeping it around if required. I'm not sure if you can hear it here. I've had an extremely bad cough for a while here. I actually coughed so badly that I pulled my back quite severely, and I had some pinched nerve probably. I thought I had broken ribs or something because the pain was really bad, so I was on some strong painkillers to be able to sleep for a little bit here, but it's getting better, so hopefully I will be back to my normal lazy self soon. Time to start pulling the cultivator itself a little closer to the garage. I will make sure to add some grease and look it over before it's put to use. It was a little sketchy just pulling it with one of these straps, but I'm only moved slightly uphill and on flat ground. Going downhill, this would not be a good solution. All the moving parts that has grease nipples, grease zerks, were added grease until I could see some grease coming out. It was greased very well before it was parked, but I figured I'll add some before bringing it out. Ensure that it hasn't lost any while parked over the summer. The tires have held the pressure surprisingly well. It had dropped a tiny bit, so pumped up a tiny bit more. But that's good news. The tension on the chains is a little bit looser than I remember, so we will tighten them up. This side the nut started backing out right away, so we added something to secure it, and I suspect this nut has come undone a tiny bit, so that one will need tensioning up, and we'll add some things to secure it. Checked the rest of the fluid levels on the forwarder, tilted the cab, the front differential looks good. This time around I'm not gonna check the plugs, I might do it a little later. The gearbox back here also has a dipstick that's really hard to access down here. I would have loved if they had a longer one that was easier to get to, but it has good fluid level. The chain tensioners were tightened up a little bit. to what feels good. The other side where we had secured it last year, because we could see it right away starting to come undone, that needed to be removed, and then it was a matter of tightening it a little bit until it felt like it was suitable, and reinstall that hollow band to keep it secure. A similar solution was added to the other side, nothing fancy. We will keep track on it as it sees a little bit of use. As the machine was backed out, I had noticed some oil leaking out of the rear right front bogie wheel, and they had grease added to the hubs before it was parked, but this one still leaked a little. I will add some grease now and we will fill a little bit of oil. It just required like 1 liter to get up to good level, so we'll need to keep track of that as we start using it. If it gets worse, we'll need to do something about it. And this might be the worst angle of connecting it to the forwarder. I had kind of forgotten about the camera, but the tractor lifted the rear end. It kind of wanted to feel like it was gonna tilt forward a little, so the forwarder, you can see the grapple and the strap held it so it wouldn't dip down, and then it was lifted or adjusted to a suitable position, and the forward could be backed up the last few centimeters, and the shackle could be mounted so it's secured to the back of the forwarder. The plate on the back was lifted now that the crane was out of the way to check the oil level in the rear differential. This oil back here has been real black and has been replaced a couple of times. There are some brake issues. It actually doesn't have functioning brakes on the rear, but I will keep using it like that for a bit longer. Addressing the rear differential and the brakes is a big job, and I haven't had time for it, and it seems to perform well with just front brakes. Missed a little bit of video checking some old rusty bolts here, because we're gonna unhook some chains this year when it's in use, but more on that later. As we started pulling it towards where it's gonna do some job, I added some oil to the chains as things were spinning. And here we are on site where it's gonna do the first job this autumn. There are 2 areas that will be cultivated and gone over with the harvester. No, the cultivator, sorry. And with this setup you can't really back up, so you need to think a little ahead a little how you're gonna go over the area. And this area here is actually quite odd in shape. I might do a drone video later. And here we're looking at the drain plug for the crane base. It should have had its oil changed already, but I've kind of forgotten about it, because this was brand new and replaced some years back, and I have not even had the plug out since. And here we're using the crane to lift up the sides one by one, and here are the bolts I checked earlier up at the garage and made sure they would come undone, because last year we had issues with the chains kind of being loose as you let things down, and one of them snagged on the steel wheel that trips like planting spots. And to ensure that can't happen, we decided to unbolt the chains and wrap them up, and simply don't have any chains there while it is in use. We will need to do the same procedure later when it's going to be in transportation mode. But you needed to do a similar with the big bracket in the middle, and the only thing then was that you could lift both of them at once. Here we do them individually, and we have a bolt we need to undo. It might be possible to secure with some kind of quick connect with just a pin and a circlip or something, but for now we're gonna do it like this. If I put more time into the cultivator with a new uh, mounting point to pull it. I might look at doing a few small improvements, but that's something for later. There was a little bit of coolant smell, and we could feel a little bit of coolant had been leaking, but it seems to coming from the big hose here on the left side, and from wrenching this summer it's hopefully just needs to be tightened up the hose clamp a tiny bit. Before we actually start using it, we're gonna look at a few things. It could have been done up by the garage, but here it's parked leaning over a little, so that's good for checking the crane base. We decided to do it out here because we knew where we were gonna park it. It would have a good lean to do that. Up at where it was earlier, it was flat or leaning the wrong way. Checked all the hose clamps that were taken off while doing the crankshaft seal earlier. They all feel nice and snug now, so hopefully that was as simple as that problem was. And here you can see that the plug, it has a bunch of hoses here. It has to do with the stabilization, that it locks up the rear end compared to the front end when you stand still. And the old crane base actually had the drain point in the middle at the bottom and a hose coming out. When the crane pillar was replaced earlier, this is a little bit different. So I'm not sure, newer machines using this might have had these hoses routed a little bit differently to make access easier, or who knows. Sometimes engineers and service people don't really get along. It was too hard to try and kind of have something to collect the oil from checking the plug, so decided to kind of undo this block, and I'm kind of glad I did. The cover was secure, but then the block itself, one of the bolts had come undone a little bit, but I didn't really bring the proper tools to try and do this. I tried undoing these two bolts that are countersunk and kind of shallow, and they did not really want to budge super easily. I think I would want to bring maybe a torch and unbolting the block and adding some heat if I really need to undo them. Something with an impact might also do the trick, but they might be on there with strong Loctite, who knows. Getting access to this lower bolt with the tools we had with us seemed impossible, but I tried backing off the nut here on the magnetic coil. Was a little worried. If you've seen my excavator videos, I've had trouble with some of these nuts being seized on. They're bad enough that they pull the entire valve apart rather than allowing you to remove just the coil. But here it came undone. There is some rust and corrosion here, but there wasn't that big of a problem. With that out of the way, the bolt could come undone. And with that folded out of the way, I could undo the plug. There is a little bit of kind of darkness here in the oil I could see, but this one has a magnetic drain plug, and there is no nothing on the plug almost. It looked maybe a few like microscopic little black pieces, but no chips, nothing of substance. So I think I will run it as it is this season, and next summer I think it's time for some bigger maintenance on both machines. They might reach the level where they should require maintenance. I will probably do a quick engine oil change and ignore changing some of the other oils until it's summer and easier to work with. I will go a little over on that, but for machines that are operated by the amateurs and not pushed super hard, I highly doubt that will be an issue. And putting things to back was just the reversal. There were a few spacers under the block itself that would have been bad to lose. Other than that, it was quite simple. The coil needed to be at kind of an angle for the protective cover to be allowed to mount back up. Time to actually put it to work now that it had been spinning somewhat from transportation out here. I added a tiny bit more grease to all the places that took grease. Some of the joints here does not really get a whole lot of grease from it, so and it's quite worn here, but I think I'll keep using it as it is until something breaks. And I add a little bit of spray lubricant here. It can't hurt. And for the first little bit, I followed my dad and checked that things seemed to work as they should, and also established the first line. And here you can see I've left quite a few pine trees, and I will rely a little on seeds in this area. I might add a few plants very far apart also, but we will see. Time will tell if it was smart, if I get a good regrowth. And I think this area is better than what we went over last year, because that was very rocky in places with very little overburden or material to try and flip over. Here I think it's better grounds in many ways. It's a bit wet in places, but not bad. Some areas will be taken with the excavator because it will yield a better result than this machine. And this area here, I'm not sure, it's hard to tell, but to the right there is kind of a gorge or a valley, and the sides on that are way too steep to mess around with the forwarder, so the excavator will need to do a little work there. And where it comes down the hill here, it's not extremely steep here, but steep enough that I would prefer to just go downhill here. That's what we're gonna do, kind of circles around this area and allow us to just go down this hill. And here is a section that's a little bit wet, a little bit more moisture here, water, and when it's this ground like this, I think the excavator will do a much better job ensuring a good regrowth, making a proper kind of pile to plant the new spruce in. Part of this will be gone over with the forward just because we have to travel this to do our loops, but behind the machine here, that section in there will the excavator will do some work and do a couple of hundred planting points with. I hope to have time this autumn to do this. If not, I need to do it in the spring because I've already ordered plants, because this wet area I will ensure to fully plant. And here is a little bit kind of a steep little ledge to climb up, and a little bit at an angle. Sounded like it felt a little scary according to my dad. I think maybe the forwarder didn't drive here at all, just the harvester when this was logged. Well, I think that's it for this video. Have a great day. If you have any questions, don't hesitate, comment. I will try to reply. So, more videos will follow, even if there has been few and far between lately, but I haven't had that many breakdowns, and I mainly post about repairing stuff and what's breaking, a little bit regarding the bark beetles. I mainly worked with the brush cutter this summer, some road maintenance, and there is always work to be done. Not all of it will make it to YouTube. So, bye.